Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I am doing a review on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling, John Tiffany, and Jack Thorne. So in my last video, I asked you guys if you would like to see a review on the Cursed Child, and several of you said that you really would, so I reread some parts, I took some notes, and today I am finally filming it. So for the most part, this entire video is going to be spoiler-filled. I really can't do a review of this with no spoilers. There's just too much to it, and I don't really want to give anything away for anyone who's worried about being spoiled about anything, because especially if you haven't read the Harry Potter series, then this definitely spoils a lot of what happens in those books. So as for the only little spoiler-free section of this video that I have, I just want to make it clear that this play was not written by J.K. Rowling. I think that's a common misconception that a lot of people, including myself, had prior to reading this. I picked this up and went into it thinking that J.K. Rowling had written the words that I was reading on this page until I got like maybe a quarter of the way through, and even from the beginning I was just like, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't seem like J.K. Rowling's writing, and that's because it's not. Jack Thorne is actually the playwright, so he's the one who wrote all the words that you will read on the pages, but J.K. Rowling, John Tiffany, and Jack Thorne all created the original story. So they contributed to the plot and exactly what was going to happen, but Jack Thorne is the only one who wrote the words on the page. I feel like it's just really important to make that distinct and clear, because if you were anything like me and thought that J.K. Rowling actually wrote the words on this page, you would be very confused when you started reading it and realized that it wasn't anything like her writing. So I just wanted to make that clear. That's pretty much it for the spoiler-free section of this video. From this point on, if you don't want to be spoiled for anything that happens in The Cursed Child, then I highly suggest that you click out of this video. If you would like to, go ahead and go and read this for yourself and then come back and we can discuss everything about it. But if you have read The Cursed Child, or if you do not care to be spoiled and just want to hear me rant about it, then you can continue watching this video. So as for how I'm going to structure this is honestly going to be all over the place, because there are just plot points and small details and things that I have a lot to say about and I want to comment on and discuss. So I'm just going to go through all of those and talk about them. And for the most part, everything's going to be chronological, so it really won't be that much of a mess. But without any further ado, let's just get into all of my thoughts on The Cursed Child. So starting right from the beginning, we pick up right where Deathly Hallows left off. They're at King's Cross Station. They're being dropped off on their first day at Hogwarts to get on the Hogwarts Express, and it's all fine. Everything is as it should be, just like the books. Then Rose and Albus get onto the Hogwarts Express, and the two of them are talking, and Rose is like, oh, we have to pick who we're gonna sit with, because who we sit with on the train determines who our friends are gonna be for the rest of our time at Hogwarts, which is a little over the top, but you know, it's fine. We're still fine at this point. So then they come across this compartment where there is just one boy sitting in there, and they go inside, and you see that it is Scorpius Malfoy, and he introduces himself, and you see that Rose is kind of being rude to him and standoffish, and then Scorpius proceeds to explain that the reason that Rose is being kind of rude is because she's probably heard the rumor that's been going around about him. And so we find out that apparently there's this rumor that Draco and Astoria Malfoy couldn't conceive a child, and they were so desperate for a powerful heir and didn't want the Malfoy line to die out that they sent Astoria Malfoy back in time to have sex with Voldemort so he could father their child and the Malfoy line could continue going on. I read that, and honestly, I fell on the floor laughing. And the thing is, that was not supposed to be a funny moment, because this rumor literally torments Scorpius. Like, he gets bullied because of it. People write Voldemort's son on his trunk before he goes to school, like, all the time. This was not supposed to be funny, but I read that line and I couldn't stop laughing. It was just too much. Like, who came up with that? And so it was from this moment that I realized that this play was going to be a wild ride. And honestly, from this moment on, everything just gets more and more ridiculous. So then after that, Rose is like, come on Albus, let's go. And then Albus is like, no, I think I'll stay, which is actually kind of a cute moment between Albus and Scorpius. And a lot of people have critiqued this play for having a lot of queer baiting between Albus and Scorpius, And I'm not gonna disagree with that. That's very true. They do a lot of that with the two of them. But honestly, I just hate Albus so much, and Scorpius deserves so much better that I could never ship the two of them. And that's not to say that I ship him with Rose in this context either, because she is also terrible and almost non-existent in the whole play. But that was just the beginning of the ridiculousness of everything that happened in here. So then after that, of course, Albus gets sorted into Slytherin, and that's how we get all of the drama with him and Harry, which by the way was completely ridiculous and really had no basis, because for a long time Albus thought that it was because he was sorted into Slytherin that he and his dad were having problems, but really that wasn't why at all. And like I said, there was no foundation to explain why they had problems with each other, so I don't understand why the entire plot of the play was basically just based around their relationship problems when there was nothing to explain why they had relationship problems. Nonetheless, we get into Harry giving Albus his blanket as a Hogwarts present, a first day of Hogwarts present, and I just have multiple things to say about this scene. First off, when he comes in, he says he has two presents for him, one from Ron and one from himself. And the present that he has for Albus from Ron is a love potion. First of all, let's just step back for a moment and acknowledge the fact that Ronald Weasley would never give a child a love potion when he himself almost died because of one in the 6th book. Why? Why would he give Albus a love potion? It doesn't make any sense. The love potion literally exists in this book for the sole purpose of being convenient later on when he spills it on the blanket and then they can somehow write a message on this blanket with the love potion, I don't know, so they can see it in the past. And oh my god, that's a whole other story. We will get into that later, but I cannot, you will never convince me that Ron Weasley would give a child a love potion when he almost died because of one. That made no sense. It literally made no sense. The other thing I have to say about that scene, yes, Albus was being annoying. Yes, he was being just angsty and terrible, and I honestly can't stand him. He's so irritating. When he was being ungrateful about Harry giving him his childhood blanket and all that, I didn't like it. It was very irritating. But Harry saying, "Sometimes I wish you weren't my son," that line infuriated me. Again, let's just take a moment to step back and acknowledge everything that has happened in Harry Potter's life and his childhood. He idolized his parents. His father was his hero and he didn't even know him. Harry James Potter would never tell his son that sometimes he wishes he weren't his son. That would never happen. Again, I don't understand what anyone was thinking in this situation because those words would never have left his mouth. Maybe I read the books completely wrong, but in my opinion, Harry Potter would never tell his son that he wishes he wasn't his son, and Ron Weasley would never give a child a love potion. Those are two things that would never happen, yet somehow they did in here. So moving right along onto the next ridiculous scene that I need to talk about, which was the Trolley Witch. Can we just take a moment? Because that scene was crazy. Of all the magical things you could have possibly had happen in this world, in this whole universe, having the Trolley Witch turn her pumpkin pasties into grenades and her hands into spikes was not what I would have thought of. It was honestly hilarious, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I laughed a lot, especially at the lines, "her spikes particularly spiky." Like, that was just too good. But at the same time, I don't understand why it happened. Honestly, I think that's just how I feel about this whole play though. Like, it wasn't really supposed to be funny at a lot of the moments where I was laughing, and then it was supposed to be funny at other moments when I was not laughing and I was just like upset. So it was just a bunch of mixed feelings. So as we keep going, we get into Albus and Scorpius at St. Oswald's home for old witches and wizards, and where they meet Delphi, or at least Albus meets Delphi for the second time, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go back in time and save Cedric. We're gonna help you." And then she just has Polyjuice Potion already prepared, and Albus says something along the lines of, "Oh, isn't it great that she had these potions prepared already? It's going to save us so much time." And when I read that, I was like, Why? You could not have made this plot point more convenient if you wanted to. Like, why on earth would you write in something like that for a character who is supposed to be a, like, secret villain? Like, it's supposed to be a plot twist when you find out that Delphi is actually the one who's behind everything. And that moment reveals that she's evil from the beginning. Like, the second scene she's in, you know that she's the bad guy. And it doesn't make sense. Also, how on earth did she have hair from Harry, Ron, and Hermione? Where did she get them? Why didn't Albus question any of this? Isn't that kind of creepy? Why did no one care? I don't understand. It's beyond me. Oh, and then there's another point where, honestly, I don't remember if this came before or after the Polyjuice potion, but when Draco comes up to Harry, I think they're at King's Cross Station, and he asks him to stop the rumors about Scorpius, about how his father is Voldemort and all of that. He comes to him, basically like begging him to stop these rumors, and Harry's just like, come on Draco, other people have problems too. There's nothing I can do about it. Which is completely untrue. Harry's literally the head of magical law enforcement, and that rumor, I'm pretty sure, started because people thought that Draco had a time turner. So if the ministry just somehow was like, no, Draco Malfoy does not have a time turner, that rumor could never exist, the rumors would stop, and maybe at least some of the people would stop tormenting Scorpius so much. But no, Harry just has to be a terrible person and act like he's still a 13-year-old, even though he's supposed to be almost 40 at this point. Like, honestly, my favorite characters in this entire play were Scorpius, because he was pure and perfect, and Draco, because everyone was so out of character. So then the next thing that I need to talk about was the kiss between Albus as Ron when he has like the Polyjuice potion and Hermione. That was so uncomfortable. I get that it was supposed to be like a funny moment, but it was like too much for me and I couldn't deal with it. Like, granted, it is kind of funny, but again, I don't think it was the type of funny that this was going for. And the fact that he was like, let's have another baby was just, it was too much. I just don't get that part at all. So the next point I want to talk about comes a little bit later, and this is after they have tried to stop Cedric from winning the second task, and then when they go back to present time, only Scorpius shows up and Albus isn't there, and he's just lying in this lake, and then who shows up? None other than Dolores Umbridge. She's like, Scorpius, what are you doing in this lake? I know your family is very powerful and that you're a popular kid in school, but that doesn't give you an excuse to ruin Voldemort Day. This AU was my favorite part of the entire play. It was straight up fan fiction, and I was dying from laughter. It was so funny. I'm pretty sure they went on fanfiction.net and looked up Harry Potter fanfiction and just like took their favorite lines, because literally that is what this was. Scorpius is just living his life in this other world, and he's so confused because suddenly he's popular and everyone at school likes him, and his nickname is the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King. I just can't deal with it. So Scorpion King is walking around, living his life, and he hears screaming coming from like the dungeons of Hogwarts. And then some girl explains to him that it's the screams of the mudblood kids from the school in the dungeons as they're being tortured or something, and their blood seeps through the floors, and apparently all of this was the Scorpion King's idea. If that doesn't sound crazy to you, I don't know what is. And I need to put the book down for a sec, because every conversation these people have ends with them crossing their wrists over their heart and saying, for Voldemort and valor. I just, what? Oh, and then of course there's also the Blood Ball, and every girl at school wants to ask the Scorpion King to the Blood Ball because he's just so popular. I can't deal with it. It's too much. Oh my god, I can't believe I almost forgot to mention the reason that Voldemort won in this AU and Harry died was because Cedric Diggory was apparently so humiliated that he lost the second task in the Triwizard Tournament that he ended up becoming a Death Eater and killing Neville. So Neville never killed Nagini, which means that all the Horcruxes weren't destroyed, so Harry died. I read that and I was like, how dare you? Cedric Diggory was pure and good at heart. Nothing on earth would have ever made him turn into a Death Eater less than the Imperio curse. Nothing else. Nothing. Nothing would turn Cedric Diggory, especially not humiliation, into a Death Eater and have him kill Neville. Like, no. Just no. So then back in the regular time, things are kind of fixed. Scorpius and Albus now realize that going back in time and changing things is really screwing things up, and they probably shouldn't be doing any of this. And things are like okay for a while, and I was like, okay, maybe this is gonna calm down. But no, I was so wrong. So they decide that they're going to destroy the Time Turner, which I was like, good, props to you. It's probably what you should have done a long time ago. But Albus, being the annoying little boy that he is, decides to tell Delphi, because he has such a big crush on her, that they're going to destroy this Time Turner, so she tags along. And then, of course, you find out that she's the evil one, and she's gonna try and force them to go back in time again, and bring back that world that Scorpius had just been a part of, where Voldemort won. So Delphi, Scorpius, and Albus are on the Quidditch pitch, and I think Delphi is like torturing Scorpius or something, trying to get them to go back in time. It's just, honestly, I couldn't even feel anything at that point because it was all too much for me. And then who comes running along onto the Quidditch pitch? None other than our good buddy Craig. Who is Craig, you wonder? Honestly, no one knows. He was in like the one scene earlier where in the AU version he did the Scorpion King's homework, and that was about it. And then Craig just shows up again and he's like, oh, Albus, Scorpius, your parents are looking for you everywhere. And then Delphi just kills him. Out of nowhere, Avada Kedavra, he's dead on the floor, and Craig is gone. R.I.P. Craig. I wanted to know more about Craig. What was Craig's life story? Did we even know Craig's last name? And I feel like the whole thing was supposed to be like a parallel to killing the Spare, which was like the whole theme of this, like being a Spare. And it really had no purpose. Like it didn't make sense. There was no continuity between like Cedric and Craig being a Spare. And Craig was the Spare in this situation. And he was just dead. He was dead. So Delphi again is trying to get them to go back, tell them that they have to, basically threatening them. And she says the line, in reference to Cedric, he needs to fly out of that maze naked on a broomstick made of purple feather dusters. Like, was that supposed to be funny? Was I supposed to laugh at that line? I did, but I don't think I was supposed to laugh at it in the way that I did. Anyway, they end up going back to the third task and they don't stop Cedric because they don't want to bring that world back. And then Delphi somehow starts flying. And I was like, how did this happen? Where did this come from? I don't understand. Just like 1 second she's chasing after them or they're chasing after her or something. And then she's just in the air. And I was like, what? Are you Zahir from Legend of Korra? Because that's honestly the first thing that came to my mind. And then I think meanwhile, when you're with like Draco and all the parents and all of them, they find out that it's Delphi who's behind all of this, but they don't know who she is until they go to her room in St. Oswald's to find out that she is the daughter of Voldemort. And in that moment, I was like, you know, there's nothing else this could do that could blow my mind. Like, I think we just like reached a level and I'm just accepting everything that has happened. Then later on we find out that Bellatrix was her mother, so apparently Bellatrix and Voldemort had sex. I don't know how that could have conceivably happened. I thought Voldemort literally wasn't even human at that point. Like, did he have functioning body parts? He didn't even have a nose. He was pretty much just like a snake. So logically and biologically and physically, I don't get how that would happen, but okay. Now we get to the worst line that was written in this entire play. And ironically, it was said by my favorite character, Scorpius. So this is when Albus and Scorpius are in Godric's Hollow and they're trying to figure out a way to contact Harry to get him to figure out where they are. And Scorpius sees Bathilda Bagshot and he says the line, "Wow, squeak, my geekness is a-quivering." I read that line and I couldn't breathe. The squeak was not even a stage direction. It was spoken. I don't think he made a squeaking sound. He said the word squeak and his geekness was a-quivering. Someone please explain to me what that means and why that line was written. I can't even explain what happened to me when I read that line. I was laughing so hard. I quote it all the time now because it's just so funny to me. It was just literally too much. Too much. Then they decide that one of them has to transfigure into Voldemort to lure Delphi to them, and this is where we get into why I think the writing was so bad in this play. So they're all arguing over who's gonna transfigure into him until Harry finally says the line, and I quote, I'll read it to you. "For this plan to work, she has to believe it's him without hesitation. She'll use Parseltongue, and I knew that there was a reason why I have that ability. But more than that, I know what it is to feel like him." I'm pausing because there's an M dash every 5 seconds. "I know what it is to be him. It has to be me." And then Ron says the line, "Rubbish. Beautifully put, but beautiful rubbish." That line is legitimately the author complimenting his own writing in his writing. And I couldn't believe what I just read. Like, there were just moments like that throughout the whole thing, and wow, that's all I can say. So then Harry ends up being the one to transfigure himself into Voldemort, and all that's great and dandy. But then we get to this moment. We get to this moment where I was solidified in my belief that this was actually fanfiction. Act 4, Scene 11. They are trying to lure Delphi into the church and all of that's going on, and Hermione tells everyone to hide, including Draco. And Draco says the line, "Hermione Granger, I am being bossed around by Hermione Granger." She turns around, he smiles, and I'm mildly enjoying it. I read that line, and I'm thinking, this is Dramini fanfiction. I have actually read this in Dramini fanfiction. I lost my mind so many times throughout this entire play, but that moment put me over the top. But then they end up going back to their regular time and things have finally worked out, and then at the very end we have Harry and Albus having their little conversation, and Harry tells him that he's afraid of things too, including pigeons, and I was like, well, you couldn't have left the ending normal, but you know, it's fine, the rest wasn't, so it's fine. So that is it overall for my thoughts on The Cursed Child. I gave this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. 1 star for Scorpius Malfoy and 0.5 stars for Craig, R.I.P. Craig, which is exactly what I wrote as my Goodreads review for this. So I think that just about covers it for my thoughts on The Cursed Child. I know that it's kind of long and it wasn't really structured like a regular review, but I just had a lot of feelings about this book and I just wanted to talk through all of them, so that's what I decided to do. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts were on The Cursed Child. I'd love to discuss with you. Even though this wasn't particularly my favorite book I've ever read, I really did actually enjoy the experience because it's honestly really funny to me and I love talking about it with you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Oh, and another line that was just so fantastic was Act 2, Scene 11. Hermione, when she's like the professor in the AU universe where she doesn't marry Ron, Albus is saying something like ridiculous and she goes 10 points from Gryffindor for stupidity. And honestly, that's how I felt about this whole play.